Excellent. Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining. This is the Wednesday, September 24th, 2025 meeting of the Community Preservation Committee for the City of Somerville. Um, let's see, pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting of the Somerville Community Preservation Committee will be conducted via remote participation. We will have a video recording available upon request as soon as possible after the meeting. Roberta, could you please call the roll?
Sure. Ryan,
Present.
Eric,
Here.
John,
Here.
Joe,
Did this not work?
Yep, now you're on.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yep. Heather,
Here.
David,
Here.
and we do not yet see Mary Jo, John, or Michael.
Okay. Thank you, Roberta. Hopefully folks have had a chance to take a look at the meeting packet that Roberta sent out. I'm going to refer to our agenda here. I see that we do have our normal approval of minutes a little later on in the agenda. That's fine by me if we want to leave that until later, Roberta. And I think we do have 2 months worth to check in on, but let's save it. That's fine. Our first matter of business on here is the introduction of the Historic Preservation Guidelines Consultant. Roberta, do you want to kick off with any intro?
Sure, yes. So as you probably recall from meetings earlier in the summer, we have retained consultant from community preservation partners to help us to revise our guidelines for historic preservation grants and to be better prepared to fulfill our responsibilities with respect to our investment in historic properties. So with that introduction to the project, I will invite our consultants to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, good evening. Actually, I have a short presentation to share that kind of goes into a little bit of who we are and a little introduction. So I'll share my screen, or I'll request to share,
Yeah.
rather.
Now you should be able to.
Great, yes. Oh, maybe.
Let me see if I need to change anything.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now I think it's on me.
Okay.
Oh, it's giving me Oh, maybe it's not allowing me. Courtney or Jillian, could you try? Maybe it's giving me a
I can check right now.
like an error. I'm gonna try again.
Success.
Okay. Okay, great. All right, just had to do it 3 times, I guess. That's the key. Well, thank you so much for having us today. As I said, we're so excited to meet you all and to really dive in to this project and this partnership with Somerville and you at the CPC. We really see this as an opportunity to strengthen your CPA program and honor Somerville's history while preparing for the future. So a little bit of who we are. So we are community preservation partners. We are a team of 3 women with over 35 years combined experience in CPA policy, planning, historic preservation, and landscape architecture. We have all seen firsthand through working with CPA programs the difference that a really good CPA program can make. And so we founded CPP in 2024 with this experience. So our mission is to help communities design and manage CPA programs that are clear, consistent, and truly aligned with local needs. And we're passionate about helping communities design and manage CPA programs that deliver lasting public benefit. So here's our team, and I'll pass it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. My name's Courtney. I'm one of the 2 historic preservation consultants of our firm. I have a BFA from the Savannah College of Art and Design for historic preservation, and since then have worked in various roles in historic preservation, both for projects and policy. And my work overlapped with Jillian, so I will also pass off to Jillian now.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for having us. My name is Jillian Lang, and I have a master's in architectural conservation from the University of Edinburgh. And I think between the 2 of us, Courtney and I, have somehow managed to cover all the historic preservation bases. So we've got easements and community engagement, Community Preservation Act, and for me, most recently, I've been in sort of the preservation funding area. So I'll pass it off to Rachel.
And I'm Rachel Guilfoyle. I'm the landscape architect of our trio. I have a degree in landscape architecture from UMass Amherst, where I went with John Brownigan, and I worked as a landscape architect in the public, rather for CDM Smith, doing a lot of work in the public sector, also with John, doing a lot of public parks and plazas and streetscapes, green infrastructure, things of the sort, before some time at the city of Boston, working for their Community Preservation Act program. So a little bit of why we're here. So our objective, our goal is to develop historic preservation grant guidelines that safeguard Somerville's unique assets while keeping the program transparent and approachable. So we want to design a framework that's both sturdy and flexible, a roadmap that fits Somerville today and evolves with it into the future. So with that, we have 6 goals. So our goals are to develop clear strategic guidelines that are consistent, transparent, and approachable for the community. Tailor the framework to Somerville's needs, balancing structure with flexibility to allow for growth. Learn from the past and plan for the future. So assess past accomplishments while identifying opportunities to strengthen long-term protections. Engage stakeholders to ensure the guidelines reflect local voices and priorities. Explore opportunities to expand program impact, including innovative partnerships such as integrating housing rehabilitation with historic preservation. And finally, deliver practical tools and guidance, including sample language, templates, and monitoring protocols, so that the CPC has a usable roadmap for future decision-making, while always considering staff and committee capacity and bandwidth. So our approach is structured into 4 phases. So we'll begin with phase 1, understanding the current landscape through meetings, neighborhood tours, reviewing existing materials, past grant agreements, and stakeholder interviews. Next, we'll assess and analyze past accomplishments and challenges, which will culminate in the diagnostic report. Third, we'll design and recommend the guidelines based on our findings. This will include practical tools like the templates and monitoring systems. So Somerville has everything needed to put this framework into practice. And finally, we will incorporate feedback and complete the final report. This is not work that we'll be doing in isolation, so we'll have our regular check-ins and open communication with the steering committee, and we'll incorporate their insights at every step. The knowledge that you all have on the CPC and the other members of the steering committee, it's invaluable, the knowledge you have of Somerville in your program. So our role is to bring the technical expertise and the structure to support your vision. So next steps, we are going to continue in phase 1 with our data review. We have a tour set up with Roberta for next week, which we're very excited about. We are going to start conducting stakeholder interviews and reaching out to appropriate people. We'll start our diagnostic report at that point. And throughout this process, we'll have ongoing steering committee engagement and check-ins with them. And that's our presentation. So, would love to hear any feedback you have, any questions you have for us, and then really any feedback that you have for us of directions we should go in, things that we should be concerned about, different projects that you think would be really good for us to look into and to kind of use as case studies or things that you've found vexing in the past and don't really have an answer to. So I'll stop sharing my screen now. And thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, all three of you. Really happy to have you with us, and excited to see what lays ahead. So we can open up to the floor. Anybody with questions or comments for Jillian, Courtney, and Rachel?
I'll jump in. All right, now Heather, you raised your hand. I didn't.
Heather, yeah, let's let Heather first. Great, thanks.
Hopefully I won't freeze up. If I do, I'll just go to another room. But first of all, great presentation. Really excited to have you guys. I think it's gonna be very, very helpful to the committee. So this is a great chapter. I'm going to bring up two of my sort of concerns that come around the preservation issue. One of them is residential landscape and buildings and losing that sort of residential scale historic buildings and all of the complications with it being privately owned and public monies and blah, 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 blah. So this is something you'll probably hear a lot more about, but that's one area that I really feel that for Somerville, we really need to get a handle on. And then the other one is one that I don't think comes up often enough, but it's almost thinking of like preserving view sheds, particularly as Somerville goes vertical, and we're losing some of our views of the Boston Capitol building, or maybe the Charlestown Monument, these kind of things that have been historically kind of a part of the public resource and assets. Having these, I know that view sheds were used in the Pioneer Valley out near I think one of the guys at UMass was sort of one of the pioneers in this, but I do think that that'd be gone very quickly. So those are two welcome and sort of two pet concerns.
Thank you, Heather. I do want to note that Mary Jo has joined us for the record. Hi, Mary Jo. Okay, David, did you want to go next?
Yeah, although Heather brought up, I think one of the things I was going to bring up is one of the reasons I think we're interested in having this process was because we've gotten some kind of vexing, applications and have been challenged on how we move forward with them. Can we move forward with them without kind of setting a precedent we don't want to be setting? And that's, I think, been, and so I'm sure you'll be hearing a whole lot more about that as you come on board. But yeah, no, I just wanted to also thank you for the presentation. It'll be great to see what happens.
Thanks, David. John?
Thank you very much. Very excited to see you all here. Rachel, I can definitely attest to all your knowledge and skill because we've gone to school together and worked together for a little bit. So very excited for you three to all work on this project. I think a few things like Heather and David both highlighted were our residential properties. We have had some tricky issues with how to deal with contracts and agreements with these properties, especially when it's properties that have like HOAs, so it's kind of condominiums and whatnot. So kind of navigating that process and making it more friendly for them, but more comfortable for the CPA is definitely a challenge that we're trying to accomplish. And then another thing that I've just noticed, especially with historic preservation, is we have a lot of buildings come to us for CPA funds because they triggered the handicap accessibility requirements. So once it's substantially modified, they need to do that work. And so a lot of our projects relate to that accessibility. And so we're trying to navigate how can we get other applicants to apply for historic preservation that definitely include this accessibility work, but that branches out past that.
Cool. Thanks, John. Anybody else with comments or questions?
I have a
Mary Jo, I see your hand up. Yeah, sorry.
There we go. Quick question, and maybe this is not within the scope of what your team will assist us with, but if there's a way for us to get a broader range of project proposals, or maybe, dare I say, for us to even be more proactive, because our CPA funding is roughly doubling in this upcoming season. Are the traditional approaches that we've used rendering the best range of project types? Now, maybe that's not, what you're helping us with, but that's kind of in the back of my mind. We're entering a new chapter because of the increased funding, and so now's the time to really make the most of it.
I'll say I think that's a great point, and while kind of talking about and recommending ways to expand outreach, and things may not be in our contract. I think one thing that we heard from the steering committee when we met with them last week, and was just reiterated here, was trying to get more people to apply to the program. And I think one of the roadblocks to people applying is the red tape and just being really nervous to enter into any sort of in perpetuity contract with the city. So I think I'll say, I don't know if Courtney and Jillian have more to say on this, but in what we're doing, in what we hope to achieve by making the process more friendly and more approachable and clear and consistent for applicants, I think a byproduct of that will hopefully be, more people apply.
Thanks, Rachel. One question that I had, oh, sorry, I'm getting feedback off somebody. If you can go on mute. The process for engaging the stakeholders and who you guys will be interviewing during this kind of early stage, what does that look like, and how can we help make sure that you're getting a kind of a broad swath of folks?
So Roberta actually shared a fairly extensive contact list with us so that we can reach out to people. So we had in mind, as we were going to do our tour on Monday, that we were going to begin to reach out to folks to set up interviews, telephone calls, or an in-person Zoom, perhaps, forgive me, not in person, face-to-face over Zoom. And then if need be as well, we could also meet in Somerville with folks if that's better. So that's kind of the approach that we were taking from now. Are there any other ways, or are there any particular folks you would like us to speak to?
Roberta, can you comment at all on kind of what groups are represented in the list that was shared?
Sure. So who's represented in the group are some past applicants of some projects that were unsuccessful, some grantees, like several of our major historic preservation grantees, and city staff who are engaged with our facilities improvements and historic preservation staff. And that, I think, is the extent. And the steering committee itself consists of Eric plus our historic preservation staff, law, and folks from the housing division, because one of the objectives for this would be to potentially help the housing division to develop guidelines for a small grant program to replace the one that was canceled a couple of years ago, in the hopes of addressing what Heather mentioned, the small residential architecture. That small grant program hoped to be able to do that, and maybe by working with the housing division, we might be able to reinvent that program. So we're going to use this as an opportunity to explore that possibility.
So Roberta, so did that list or the city staff had included the legal office, the folks that have given us the draft kind of guidance we've received so far?
Yes, I hadn't included them as an interviewee, but they are included in the steering committee and will be reviewing all of the materials that we produce.
Because it'll certainly be important to bring them along.
Yeah.
Whatever it is we're thinking, would be agreements we could sign.
Absolutely. We don't want to get too many steps ahead of them.
Right.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Roberta. I think personally, it might be interesting, especially given that part of the charge here I'm hearing is to figure out how we ensure that preservation restrictions have teeth and set us up for, long-term impact of our scarce dollars. But at the same time, we're not scaring people off, that we understand the needs of the people who are actually doing the work. I'd be curious to see if we can get connected with people working in development specifically at different scales. Some of it may be small scale, some of it, larger multifamily or whatever, to figure out how we strike that balance. And Jillian, Courtney, and Rachel, you're all experts at walking that line, I'm sure. But specifically in Somerville, that could be something for us as a group, as a committee, to try to identify some folks that could be good to talk to.
Definitely, at least one or two of our grantees that are on the contact list would fall in that category.
Fun.
Is this something that CPP has already addressed or dealt with in other communities, and you have like kind of any thoughts you can share, or you kind of know you've got a template in your back pocket?
So our specific experiences from the City of Boston CPA. We also have extensive experience with historic preservation development. And one of the things that we were talking about already is when we were talking about inventory and privately owned, and then you're talking about income producing multifamily, oftentimes that kicks over into the historic tax credit world. Or the low income or affordable housing tax credit world. So we were already starting to think about looking at inventory and different slices that you can look through the lens with that and see what is going to self-elected out, what's going to stay in, and then what kind of parameters could be helpful in that opportunity. And so we were kind of spitballing some ideas with that as well. And then we also have experience with how the City of Boston did it. And we have a close relationship with Stuart Saganor to kind of reach out and spitball some ideas with him and say, we heard this happened in this town. How did it actually go? Do you have a contact there?
Thanks, Courtney. One more from me. I'm sorry if I missed it in the presentation itself, but what is the timeline for this engagement and deliverable?
You didn't miss it. So we we'll have two deliverables. We'll have the diagnostic report, and then we will have as the final guidelines and report as a second deliverable. So our timeline right now, we are in the proposal, we submitted a timeline that I think had us starting in early August, but so things I think are shifted around a little bit, but I think we are still hoping to have the diagnostic report by the end of the calendar year. And then I know the hope, Roberta, correct me if I'm wrong here, was to have everything kind of wrapped up and tied in a bow by April. that is best case scenario. And I think we are absolutely, right now in a position to do that. But we're going to be starting with the interviews next week. So we're hitting the ground running.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
The timing, I'm sorry, go ahead, Heather.
It was just the mention of Stuart Zagmore, which made me think of, he had mentioned to me once that the town of Plymouth was very aggressively going after residential architecture and preservation because they understood it to be kind of the backbone of their character. And so that would just perhaps be an interesting one to dig into with him.
Yeah, they basically were buying up storefronts and such, saying, here's money, fix up what you need to the Secretary of Interior standards, and let's throw a preservation restriction on this property because they've had a bit of an economic boom that's been coming around for the past like 7 to 11 years down there. And with that, things were getting gobbled up. Waterfront area especially was starting to change in a way they didn't care for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had just wanted to make a comment regarding the timing, which is, it's unfortunate that we couldn't have started this project 6 months earlier because we're entering into our funding cycle right now, and we'll be trying to make decisions about projects in December. So some of the projects already are under permanent preservation restrictions because of past CPA funding. And there are a couple of new sites in the mix. So I don't know whether it will be possible for us to generate some ideas by, say, December or January, when the committee is evaluating those projects. In an ideal world, we would have some good ideas generated by then, but as you pointed out, we're already getting off to a little bit of a late start. So we'll have to work within the confines of the time that we have.
Understood. Thanks, Roberta.
Well, I think, well, again, going to Mike's point earlier, I think one of the goals maybe in this funding cycle is to do no harm, and not.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe,
sorry, was there one more?
oh yeah, maybe I'm just thinking about the timeline. Maybe it could be possible to um, develop um, an interim strategy this year with the understanding that we'll apply a more permanent strategy going forward. Something to consider when we see how the decisions are progressing at the end of the season.
And in the same context, I mean, because the ones that have been so most vexing for us have been the private properties, where we want to, on the one hand, we want to help the homeowners that are trying to do the same thing. On the other hand, have this kind of clawback challenges. And if we can kind of front load, or if you guys can front load, that aspect of it, so that we can have some guidance for this cycle, and then maybe work on the more robust, overarching stuff, but I mean, I'm not on the steering committee, so obviously, that's just an off the cuff thought though.
Okay.
I will
Very
say
good.
I'm sorry. I was just
No, go
gonna
ahead.
just gonna say that I'd say that every comment tonight is very in line with everything we heard from the steering committee. All of the concerns, the kind of top priority concerns are, the exact same. So that's good. That's good for us. Gives us a good place to start. But I would say that yeah, that's definitely, something we can do.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very, very much for being here, all three of you. Really appreciate it. This is exciting, great presentation, and yeah, please, don't be shy about going through Roberta to be in touch with us, and happy to help in any way we can.
Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on our agenda here, we are going to do our first pass of the exciting list of 2026 applications that we have. Hopefully folks have had a chance to see the initial application packets that are uploaded in your meeting package. A handful of these are frequent flyers that we know and are very familiar with, and then some of these are new folks in the door. So maybe we'll do some Google Street viewing and some background to talk through what they are. Mary Jo, do you have a question?
Super quick. Roberta, the Buddy's Diner folder or PDF or whatever was not, when opened, did not have any content. Am I the only one that had that experience? Because that's the only one I wasn't able to really look at because of that.
It's opening for me. I just opened it.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue. Maybe...
That's good to know. I can troubleshoot that with you, Mary Jo. And I will be sending out in the next meeting packet, or maybe I will upload to our website even before the next meeting packet some revised applications, because I found as I finally I have to apologize first of all that it took a lot for me to get all of these applications ready to put in the meeting packet to send out to you by Friday. I'm finally this week actually reading the applications, and I see that a number of them included material that you don't need. So I'm cutting out some extra attachments that aren't helpful to you, and I can follow up with one or two of the applicants to ask for some material that they omitted from their applications. So I will put onto the city's, onto our website, the document library, CPA applications, um, an edited version of the applications that you could access anytime this month. And in the next meeting packet, I'll have something more final for you to review ahead of time.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, I think there's probably still benefit in just doing our first look through these so folks can kind of familiarize themselves. So I guess we can just go through the order that is on the agenda here and start with the Somerville Armory property needs assessment and doorway renovation. So it looks like this one is in for $50,000, about $25,000 for each of those two tasks.
Yes.
Oh, thanks, Roberta.
Yeah, I'm projecting, and so I don't recall whether the order in the agenda is the same as the order on this spreadsheet, but late breaking news this afternoon. The Armory is actually going to withdraw their application for the regular funding round. They decided that they need to go back and develop more coordination with the Infrastructure and Asset Management Division that oversees the maintenance of our city buildings, so that they can refine the scope of the project. So they hope to come back with an off-cycle application later on. I invited them to just give us a modification of the application if they could get that in by November, but they preferred to just withdraw this application for now, and they'll come back later with a better application.
Understood.
Why you have this up, actually, it'd be helpful to take a look at this for a moment, because I didn't see the debt service coming out of the budget, like down lower you had the sort of, there's the debt service. Okay. But the grant tracking detail, the total sums that you're using there, is that minus the debt service?
No, this is the amount available. So that's pegged to the amount available after subtracting the debt service. So say for
Okay.
historic resources, the original amount was 762. The amount available is 633,
Yeah.
and 633 is what's linked here.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Thank you for checking my math, though. It takes many sets of eyes.
All right, since we're not considering the Armory project right now, I'm going to move on to the second item on here, which folks who've been around for a while will know, the Elizabeth Peabody House. For folks who are new or need a refresher, this is in, I guess, technically Winter Hill on Broadway, very near Foss Park. It's a project that we funded, I think have funded in several cycles, but last year funded some facade improvements, I believe, on at least a couple of the sides of the building. Roberta, do you care if I share my screen for Google Street View for a second?
I think you should be able to.
All right, cool. This is not a very beautiful day they took this image, but in any case, looks like the request for this year is about structural stabilization on the upper structure and restoring the second floor to safe use. This is an approximately $420,000 request. And we have, Roberta, in the past, I think we've had folks from the Peabody House come in and comment on their progress from previous awards. I would assume that's something we would look to do probably regarding our last year award before deciding to do anything this year
Yeah.
again.
So I want to just give you a little bit of orientation to their application. Theirs is one of the very, very long applications, and I took out some extraneous material, but their application includes a 2017 condition assessment report, which was the basis of their deciding that it has guided them in each of the subsequent projects that they've done. So that's where they learned that they needed to do the structural reinforcement in order to be able to use their second floor. Previously, they've worked on the roof, windows. I just saw a picture last week of the windows being reinstalled. They are gorgeous. It just gives me chills to see the work that we've done. The siding is what they're working on right now to restore the historically appropriate siding. So the next thing on their list is this structural reinforcement, which opens up the ability to make improvements to the second floor so that it becomes usable space. And there's also an engineering report included in the application for just that portion alone.
And for folks who aren't as familiar, really interesting community asset in terms of the way this building is used. We'll learn more about it and talk more about it when we dig into the actual pitches and Q&As in the months ahead. Anything else, Roberta, you want to add on this one before we move on?
No, but I would invite anyone, if you have questions, you can tell me now or email them to me later about any of these projects. I've told the applicants that if possible, I'll share any questions with them in advance so that they can be prepared. We'll have 10 projects presenting at our next meeting in October. So we'd like to be able to run through those Q&A as quickly as possible. So enabling the applicants to be prepared will get us the answers that you all need more quickly.
Excellent. All right, number 3 on our list here is Buddy's Diner in East Somerville on Washington Street. This, as most folks probably know, has been closed down for probably a year, if memory serves, something like that. The historic diner. And I did not realize until reading this application that it was closed for emergency water damage related to pipes, ruptured pipes or something like that. So the request is for emergency water damage repair as well as a historic conditions assessment for this historic structure. I do note as I walk by this place all the time that it is listed as for sale on there. So I'll be curious to hear how that plays into the request and what comes next. Everybody, do you have any other background on that ahead of time?
I would, so I mean, the property owner can speak the best about why it's listed for sale, but my understanding is that it's been closed for I think 2.5 years now,
Oh,
and she's at the end of her rope. And really, without funding to be able to get her business open again, just needs to be able to move on with her life. So that's why she's put the building on the market. But I think that getting the funding to open her business would probably be her preferred way forward.
understood. Okay.
I have a question where in the application, what she mentioned that the pipes broke because of work next door. But
The
isn't there insurance money or anything like that? Like they don't mention anything about insurance, and that would be one of my questions for her. Like, well, why isn't there
okay.
other sources of money?
All right. I'll ask her to explain.
Okay. Any other upfront questions, comments on buddies? All right. Let's move on then to the Veterans Memorial Cemetery and Monuments, which is over on Broadway here. You guys are getting this is a test of my Somerville geography, if you can watch me pan around Google Maps like this. Okay, so this is the group that came to us last year and that they ultimately were awarded a kind of pared down request from what originally had come in the door to get shored up on a design study and some, historical audit, I guess you'd say, of the property. And now, Roberta, as I understand it, this is an ask to do some of the actual work that was identified last year.
Correct.
I did note, though, that in reading it, that they're actually not limited to this property this year, right? That they're actually asking about some repairs to a number of different monuments around the city, really in kind of all different neighborhoods. By the way, I was reading it, so I'll be curious to hear more about that. Anything else to add, Roberta, or anybody?
Well, yeah, yeah, I had a quick question. I think we had a lot of questions about the scope of the work that they're proposing, and part of, I think, what we funded was for them to do a deeper dive, right? I think into appropriate restoration work. Does this application address all those concerns from last year? I guess it was, or the year before.
Yes, the application includes an attachment, which is the study that was prepared by their historic preservation consultant, who has detailed a treatment plan for all of the monuments in the cemetery and the other monuments mentioned in the application.
And it seems, based on just nothing, but based upon what was submitted, that it is a reputable, known entity that performed that study, and I think lends some credence to the plan.
Mhm.
Anything else on this one? All right, let's crack on then to the Grace Baptist Church, which is here. One of our frequent flyers over the years. And I understand this one is for window restoration and new storm windows where applicable, some selective exterior masonry repairs, and enclosure and protection of the towers, which have been overrun by critters. Anything to add to that, Roberta?
I would just note that this is another application, as you mentioned, frequent flyers. They have undertaken really substantial improvements on this building, mostly funded by CPA. They've additionally received funding from state historic preservation grants and from ARPA to supplement CPA on this project. We literally kept this front section of the building from falling in when they discovered urgent structural deficiencies in that area when they were repairing the roof. So the roof has been replaced. There have been a number, the masonry around throughout most of the building has been replaced in sections. There's still some sections that remain to be repaired. And we are installing an elevator in a new entrance to the door that you're showing in this picture right here, right about where that orange blob is along the walkway. They'll be installing a new main entrance to the basement level, which they're leveling so that it's all one level. It used to be a multi-level basement floor. And so then there'll be an elevator serving all 3 floors. And this building, as you may all be aware, houses a number of uses. It's owned by the Somerville Hispanic Association for Community Development. They have they have a large food pantry and a number of community programs that organization runs. And they are landlords with tenants being the Elizabeth Peabody House, who operate a large childcare program on the 2nd floor, and a church uses a space in the back of the building.
Good summary. Okay. Anything else on Grace Baptist Church? All right. Then we're on to Vida Real, which
I'm sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
one quick question on that. When can we have an update in terms of where they are at in terms of completing their awarded grants?
Yeah.
How far they are?
That'd be great. I think for any of our repeat customers, it'd be great to get an update.
Because I think part of the thing with these guys is that they were awarded a couple separate grants, and then they combined them all in order to make the work more efficient, to do it in one larger sort of phase. But it has been a while since the initial grant to completion. So like Elizabeth Peabody House is excellent project managers. These guys, I think they're finally hitting their groove.
Yeah. So
All right.
In terms of being able to manage these projects.
Okay. Good note. Thanks, Heather. All right, next one here is the Vida Real on Broadway, Winter Hill. This is for roof repairs. This is another one we've had several applications over the years. I think last year we awarded, was it last year or the year before? Awarded for accessibility improvements inside, among other things, a series of studies. But it seems like this is actually for the bricks and mortar, so to speak, of roof repairs that they say are badly needed. Anything, Roberta, to add color to
Yeah,
that?
actually, I'll um correct the summary of the work that we've already done on this building. So they initially requested funds before my time to restore the masonry on the tower, and that project got caught in the pandemic and took much longer than anticipated. The cost escalated, so they came back and requested a second tranche of funding to be able to finish the masonry of the tower project. They came last year and requested funds for a full condition assessment, but that was only for the exterior, not interior. They did say that they would put up their own funds to expand the condition assessment to look at code improvement needs on the interior, but I don't know. I didn't see that was included in this consultant's report. But the part that we paid for was included in the report, which was a review of the historic preservation needs for the exterior. So their architectural consultant recommended the highest priority to address the roof.
Understood.
Roberta, can you remind us or me of the range of uses that goes on, and maybe just a tiny bit about?
So this building is used by an active religious community, not the original one that built the church, but one that purchased the building more recently. And they provide they have a food pantry as well, and they provide some children's programming throughout the week. I'm not entirely sure of what the nature is of the programming that they provide at the moment. We asked them last year to give us a description of what the uses are inside the building. So I could include that as an attachment to the application, so that you weren't here when they provided that the first time.
Okay. And I forgot to write down the dollar amount of this request. I don't remember off the top of my head.
It is for $150,000.
Thank you. Okay. With that, I will move on to the next one on here is the Somerville Museum Preservation of Selected Historic Resources. So this, I think, is exclusively kind of a collections-based request this year. And I think we heard some of these in a previous request. Is that right, Roberta?
No, these are
They're
all new.
fresh.
They're all fresh new artifacts that they're looking at this year. And this is one of the applications that I'm removing a lot of extraneous material that isn't relevant to the application. They gave us some very interesting material, like master plan for improvements of their building, which we have helped them to carry out over the last several years, but they're not touching their building with this grant application. So I took out everything related to the building from the application materials. So they're looking at some paintings and frames and pieces of furniture that they are restoring with this grant.
I think we did fund some painting restorations or frame restorations a year.
We did. These are
And
new
this is additional
paintings.
pieces, yeah.
Yeah.
So all of the stuff that they had in storage come back. I know that was an issue for a while. Is it all back in the museum?
To my knowledge, everything has been returned to the museum. But that's a question that actually I can ask them to address.
I'm sure they'll be willing to attend and field questions as well. Usually they're very happy to come CS.
I don't see that application. Is that what is it? What is that one called in the list? Maybe I'm just spacing on it.
Some of them have names that are kind of obscure. That's
Right, that's
another
why
thing I could
that's
do
why
to
I was
help you.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. But for some reason I thought I thought
Preservation.
Preservation of
selected. Oh, there
selected.
it is. Yeah, yeah. It's just right. The museum is actually cut off. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
When I repost the applications, I will change the names so they're easier to
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, or even just add a hyphenated, here's what we call it, to the beginning of their name, whatever, however you want to do it.
These names are auto-generated by the program, by the platform that I use to collect the applications.
No worries. Okay. Next on the list is it's called on the agenda, the Mystic Open Space Recreation Improvements. I understand this is a Somerville Housing Authority request. And it seems that it is kind of a scattered set of improvements around the SHA development off Mystic Avenue. I'll share again. Folks probably know what and where this is, but I think it's interesting to look at while we talk about it. So the place that I think it had a photo of in the application I saw was the basketball court over here and the adjacent field. So it looks like they are asking to do some improvements to the basketball court. And I think these are community gardens.
That's the community garden. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So some community garden improvements there, but the application did note it was for scattered community raised gardens. So I don't know if that implies that maybe they'll be dispersed throughout the site a little bit more. Roberta, is that the gist? Okay.
Yeah, if so they did give me a tour of the site before they prepared the application, so I can give you a little bit of an introduction. Those community gardens that you see at the back are a very old style of community garden, no raised beds. They're all improvised by the people who use those community garden beds, flat against the ground with improvised stakes and structures and things. And so there are a lot of complaints about it being very run down and rats and so forth. So they'd like to improve this. And there are, there's a model of community garden that I've seen used by other housing authorities that I mentioned to them. So I'm guessing that this might be something that they are considering, which would be to put raised beds scattered throughout their housing development rather than this one fenced off area at the back of the development. And the raised beds might help to address the complaints about rats. And it being scattered means that it really doesn't take up any space that's being used for anything else. But that's, I think, to be determined in this design concept plan. So if you were to, from where you're standing right here, look to your left, and go, I think, around the buildings that are immediately to, so go straight ahead down that road a little ways. And I think if you rotate around, there's a pair of adjacent open spaces. I'm not sure exactly where to direct you to find them in this. There's a tot lot and a section of land that is just, it had been developed into, I think, a water feature at one time, but it's in disrepair and right there, that. So that's the tot lot. And if we turn around behind where we are right now, there's just an empty blue No. Hmm. We scanned over it for just a second. So there's that, and
Over
oh,
here.
yes, right there, that spiral. Um, it's just a play surface with rocks sticking out of it, and nobody uses it for anything. So
That looks
those
like
are
a dog run to me. So
could be a dog run would probably be a better use for it than what it
yeah.
is right now. So they want to reinvent that space. So that was one of the motivations that they originally told me. I think the tot lot that we looked at a second ago is actually recently improved and in fairly good condition, so that's not as much on their minds. But the large field and community garden and this um, unused lot behind us are the things that they were most focused on when they spoke with me.
Great. I think the application, if memory serves, it referred to a site plan. There was a link to a site plan, and when I clicked the link, it looked like it went to a City of Somerville employees like login
Okay.
situation. So maybe for the next packet, that's something we can take a look at. I'd be curious to see if they've like delineated where they think the raised community beds might go, community garden beds might go, that kind of thing.
So my understanding is that this application is for like a conceptual plan.
Yeah.
It's not actually for construction at this time.
Yeah, understood. Okay.
Although the plan does talk about construction spring of 26 and spring of 27 for phases 1 and 2 respectively. I don't know if the funding is envisioned to cover that. But
So a question that we want to ask them is to clarify their timeline and what is actually being accomplished in the scope that they're asking us to fund.
and they also talk about a phase 3 above, but there isn't a phase 3 in the timeline.
Yeah.
Good clarification question there, David. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it does look like that in their budget. They do have building construction line items. So it does look like they're proposing to use it for construction as well, maybe as planning.
Yeah. I appreciate your highlighting, calling this out because I think, we do need to ask them to provide more clarity.
And to be honest, and even as I go a little deeper, there is actually a table which shows construction through year 2029, and it does mention phase 3. So so again, I'm just glancing at it, so it seems like the material they've attached is a little bit is different from, maybe a little more detailed than the summary, in the cover.
Yeah. And my understanding of it, based on my conversation with them, might not be consistent with the material that they've provided. And you're right, it's not detailed enough.
Mm-hmm. But on its face, it all seems like good work,
Yeah.
for us to.
All right, anything else on this SHA proposal? All right, let's keep it moving then. Next one on here, folks are probably familiar with the Open Space Acquisition Fund. John, we won't make you pitch it now, but anything, Roberta, you want to say off the top about this one?
This is similar to the Open Space Acquisition Fund tranches that they've applied for in the past. So I don't think there's anything new.
How much are they requesting?
200,000.
Yes. I'm wondering if they should request more. Because my recollection in past years is we couldn't give them more than they requested. And now that we have double the funding, whether this should reflect that. I mean, and we can always give them less, right? They can ask for 500,000 and we can give them, 250 or 300. We just can't give them more than they asked for.
It's a
Well,
fair
let's
point.
yep, got
Go
it.
on. Fair point. Maybe we leave it at that. Okay. And I'm sure, John, when we go over this next month, I'm sure there'll be a update on where we are on overall balance and how close we are to being actionable with those dollars. Because that'll be key. Okay. Anything else for open space acquisition fund? Cool. All right, last two. Kennedy Schoolyard renovation, which I believe is by Davis or Porter, rather.
By Porter.
Porter, my bad. Schools are my weak spot, guys. You know this. All right, I'll share again. All right, so I guess we've had a series of school playground or open space renovations that we've seen and funded over the years. Roberta, you have better memory for our priors than I do, but it seems like this is the next in line. Fair to say?
Yep.
And let's see. Yeah, I don't have much more to say than that, other than this is correct me. This is for design work, or are they pivoting into construction here? I just don't remember.
So this request is for $1 million toward construction of
This is
the
construction.
design that we funded last year. So last year we added funds to the design to expand this playground and make it into a accessible school playground. And so now they are putting together the funding for for construction.
Yeah.
Are the school playgrounds accessible to the public after school hours?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Cool.
So our requests exceeded the purse that we had this year, correct? I mean, overall.
Correct, with a caveat that we were required this spring to reduce the budget from what we had projected. And we may be able to appropriate the remaining funds that we had projected this spring. And after we finish looking at these, I can give you a quick walkthrough of what the budget looks like now versus what we might have for new revenue. And I have not yet looked at what the carried over revenue is.
And if we wanted to bond something, that's something where we make similar to anything else, where we make that recommendation and it goes to the council, the city council, and they would determine that or something. So
I
so
think
we don't necessarily have to have all the money in this year's budget. We could decide to bond a portion of it.
So the decision to bond would be that would be a request that would be made by the city as a separate project request. So they're looking for $1 million toward the project out of current year revenue right now, and they indicate in their application that the intent to come back with a request to bond an additional amount. And if they do come back to request a bond, that would be a separate request.
Because I see the bond request in the budget summary form, but it's not clear that it's not for this year.
Yeah, so we could ask for explanation of the timeline for a future bond request when they come next month.
So because, and also in the summer, in the very top line of it, it says, you know, the CPA funding request is $1 million and the total budget is $3 million. It doesn't, it sounds, the way you're characterizing it's more like it's all going to be CPA, but maybe not over a single funding cycle.
Yeah, the CPA request of $1 million is for this year's revenue.
Okay.
And then they anticipate a future request for $2 million bond.
Okay. So to my untutored eye, that's not what it looks like in the application. Now, maybe if I mean, I could read all the words. I'm just looking at the numbers.
I think after discussions with Roberta, we just wanted to keep everything as transparent as possible with our future requests. We know we made a original request for $1 million, so we wanted to continue with that request. But at this time, we're still trying to figure out the remaining funding sources and just wanted to keep it transparent that CPA might be an option. And if we did come back,
Oh, that's fine. I think it's just maybe the phase, you know, what you're asking for now and what you're going to potentially be asking for later, you know, could be, maybe it could be a little clearer.
Of course, I can work on a timeline for the next meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Cool.
And we may actually have more concrete information about potential funding sources by then, possibly.
Excellent. Okay, last one, and then we'll move on to maybe hearing a little bit more about the budget that Roberta was referring to. Last one here is the Blessing of the Bay Linear Park improvements in, I guess, the 10 Hills neighborhood. And this is another one that we have funded design work for previously. And they're back again. So any other background you want to give here, Roberta?
That is all. They do mention some additional projects that have been funded. There were some early planning, conceptual planning for this site, and then they've made some iterative improvements with both CPA and state funding in the last several years. The most recent CPA project, aside from design of the improvements that this would construct, the linear path, is the meadow that is down by the very end of the path. I think you just went
By
the
the-
wrong
It's at the other end.
other
Oh,
end.
by the pollinator garden thing.
Yeah, there. So that the meadow was constructed there. That was a CPA funded project. So this picture was taken before meadow.
I see. Excellent.
Um,
I know what you mean. It's right here, right? Where
yeah, yeah.
circle. Yeah. Okay.
So the project is being spearheaded by the Mystic River Watershed Association, that's MIRA. But since it is on actually city property, this whole park is a combination of DCR, where that person is walking, that's DCR land, and then the street right of way and a setback from the street is owned by the city of Somerville. And this project all takes place in the area that's owned by the city of Somerville. So the city of Somerville is the applicant, and they've been accumulating funding for construction through a combination of CPA tranches and funding from other sources, both state and private funding sources. So they're almost there, but are looking for CPA funds to help close the gap.
Understood.
So I know that they have all this documentation and can and have supplied it to the city. But I think just providing a clear outline of all the funding that they've received already, and any other future opportunities of funding. I know there's kind of a small gap remaining, but just kind of having that outlined.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I have a quick question, and it might be for John and it might be for Roberta. In projects like this one where they have to gather together, large sums over a period of time, have we ever seen these projects go into construction in phases, or is that just crazy talk? It needs to be done all at once for economies of scale? Or in other words, if it takes them a while to be able to do the entire thing, do we sometimes see it done in stages?
That's a great question. I would have to defer to John for his experience with park and open space projects, but I can tell the story of the Somerville Museum and the Somerville Hispanic Association, both of whom undertook really large, significant projects that were funded by CPA, and it required several years of installments to pay for those projects. And they were actually completed in at one time, but they collected funding in advance and then had to go back and close funding gaps when they got into the project. So that made it several installments of funding, but the actual construction occurred all at once.
Yeah, phasing is a wonderful way to kind of chip away at a larger project, especially if you have like smaller pools of funding, or especially if those funding sources only have like a 2 or 3 year limit. We can kind of chip away at a larger project by doing a few different phases. It's also being in such a tight, dead city, phasing usually is required because we don't have the space to kind of lay everything down in a yard somewhere nearby, because it's also dense.
The one of the reasons that it crossed my mind was we're in this weird period, and I don't think it's ever going to end, where the cost of construction materials and things just keep spiraling upward. So it must be hard when they're assembling monies over maybe a few years. It's such a moving target. Whereas back in I'll call it the olden days, maybe it wasn't such an exponential cost. Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like we may now, for projects like this, see that it needs to be done in phases. I don't know.
And that's sometimes the detriment of phasing, is that you're kind of accepting that projects are going to cost more over time rather than just committing full funds to something right away and kind of locking in that price. But sometimes, it needs to be done for a project.
Okay. Thanks both. All right. With that, we've made it through our list of applicants for this year. Thanks for bearing with me and for your comments and questions. Excited to dig into these more in the couple months ahead. Roberta, before we go through the rest of the quick agenda updates, did you want to say anything or comment about the budget and potential changes, upcoming clarity, etc.?
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen again. Yeah, I think this is the correct file. Is it? Am I sharing?
You're
We're seeing
sharing a folder.
your file explorer.
Okay. I have this open. That's what it looked like I was going to share, but that's not what I was trying to share. It just didn't identify. There we go. Now I see the right file. Okay. Okay, so the sum of the projects that have been requested, I can't see very well on a small screen with things overlying it. So column H is what has been requested in the applications. And we already voted out the Somerville Affordable Housing Trust tranche. So the total for historic preservation open space requests is 3.1 million. And the total available right now is 2.1 million. That is with the budget that that we were instructed we had to appropriate this spring. The budget that we had anticipated that we projected we would have with the new 3% surcharge is shown on the CPA FY25 budget page that's in the file that was in your meeting packet. And it's shown below. So this is what was actually approved at the top, and what we projected is below. The total available would be 3.1 million. So almost exactly what was requested this year if we're given the green light to be able to appropriate the rest of the funds that were that we projected. So 3.1 million is what we would. I'm looking column H 3.1. I'm not sure why this is. This seems to still have the historic preservation. Yeah. So this should be equals this. Okay. 3.1 million. So, and this does not yet take into account carried over reserves. So I will not look at this. I won't try to fill these numbers in until November. It's a moving target before then. So that will be our snapshot of how much we have available. There are some really minor numbers that are moving around right now with respect to funds that should be left over in the reserves. The undesignated fund balance I anticipate something in the order of $1 million. That's the usual amount that we find in November, give or take. But these numbers will be insignificant.
Roberta, I'm a little confused. Can you explain again the difference between the numbers in column F, the 2.12 number, and the 2025 CPA numbers that seem to be 3.1 under the new structure?
Yeah. So these numbers are what were budgeted. This is what the city council approved in the first table on the budget page. And so the 3% surcharge estimate is what I've shown in this table down below, but we were instructed that we had to use a number that was lower than the 3% surcharge for the year. It only applied the 3% surcharge to 2 quarters instead of 4 quarters. So the number that was approved by city council is what's shown in this table.
So but since the full 3% is going to be collected this year, as I understand,
So
to be changed.
It will be collected this year, but the question is whether we will be allowed to appropriate it while it's still available for appropriation. If not, then those funds are going to go into the undesignated fund balance in the future.
Yeah.
And we won't be able to draw them until they have been certified.
Okay.
So eventually that money will be available, but we hope that we'll be able to use the funds this year since obviously there are requests that would match the funding availability.
Mm-hmm. And the city itself wants the missing million. So.
Yes. So that's the story. And I will explain all of that as clearly as I can in the November report, before you begin to make your funding decisions.
When do we make, what meeting are we starting to make the funding decisions? December or not till January?
Typically you make the funding decisions in December, and if so we look at the amount of funding that's available in November, and then you might, at that point, decide whether you're going to give an additional tranche to affordable housing to keep up with the promised 55%. You might um, decide how you're going to prioritize the remaining requests, funding requests for historic preservation, open space, and recreation, so that you'll be ready to make the decisions quickly in December. So you'll do some analysis and preparation in November that will prepare you to begin making decisions in December.
Excellent. Okay. With that, let's cruise through our last couple items here on the agenda. First is the approval of the minutes, both from June and July. I know those are in the way back after our August hiatus, but any questions, comments about the minutes from June or July as shared?
I just wanted to remind everyone that the reason why we're looking at the June minutes is because we discovered that there was a paragraph missing from the minutes when I shared them with you the first time. So that's been corrected.
Thanks, Roberta. All right, hearing no questions or comments, can I have a motion to approve both the June and July minutes as written?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Eric. Have a second?
All right.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Heather. Roberta, please call the roll.
David,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
John,
Yes.
Mary Jo,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Joe.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Second to last item here is the update on the CPC general public member recruitment.
So a really exciting update. We are in the midst of interviewing candidates for the general public member. You can actually get a sneak preview of who those candidates are that we are interviewing because they are posted on our webpage. There's a link from our webpage to see their candidate bios. We received 14 applications again for one open position. So a really wide range of people applied, outstanding candidates, and it will be a difficult decision to make.
That's fantastic. We got so many applicants. Nice job by all involved in the outreach. Okay. Any questions or comments about that from anybody? All right, let's move on to our last agenda item, which is just updates and I think a forward-looking schedule for some of our public outreach, Roberta.
Yes. So actually a request for or invitation for all of you to join me in public outreach events coming up. There are several events coming up. I'm going to share the calendar, which was included in the planning section of your meeting packet. So we already attended recently National Night Out, which occurred in August. Mary Jo and I were at the Dilboy Stadium, talked with lots of people. And then actually just a couple weeks ago, I attended an event on the Tufts campus where I met with a lot of students, staff, and other vendors who attended this event who are area business owners, realtors in particular, and got some of their input. That was interesting. And so we have some events coming up, which are Tufts Community Day, the Monster Mash event, and we have yet to set a date to attend the Davis Square Farmers Market. So I wanted to ask if any committee members would like to join me in any of these events.
So, Roberta, I don't know if you plan, I looked at the Monster mashup and I guess it goes until 6 o'clock at night. And I
Yeah.
could do that later part. I have stuff I need to do at the earlier segment during the day. Were you thinking about being there up until the 6 o'clock hour?
Sure, I'll be there from start to finish.
Okay, because I could be there from like 3:30 or 4 until 6.
Okay.
When does it start?
I think it starts at 12 or something.
I don't think it's 6 hours. But I'll check.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can do that. I might be able to do Tufts Community Day, or at least one of the slots.
Mhm.
So you can sign me up for one of those.
Depending on which farmer's market date you settle on, I might be able to, I would be interested in helping out on one of those. It just depends on which Wednesday you end up with.
We can coordinate because I think they tend to be very flexible and will work with us whatever date we choose, so we can coordinate on that. And what I have done in the past, it's a long date. I'm disappointed that I didn't think to put the times in this. I've split it up over 2 different dates to do the farmers market in shorter periods instead of one long one, but it I'll any way that we want to do it is good.
What would be the typical hours in total and before you do your splitting?
I think it's
I think it's 12 to 6.
yes, that sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're probably thinking 3-hour chunks, perhaps?
yeah.
Okay.
And I've done it both during business hours and after business hours. So the Monster Mash is 12 to 6. 2 to 6. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
thought that didn't sound right. 2 to 6.
Okay.
So, Mary Jo, I'll put you down and we
We
can
can
coordinate.
coordinate on when. It would likely be that, it would be easier for me if I was doing a chunk rather than the 6 hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Great. Were you just speaking, Eric? We couldn't hear you.
That's because you all weren't listening hard enough. I was asking, sorry, I was muted. I'm catching up. Oh, you filled it in. Okay, I was looking at the other spreadsheet. You just answered my question. I was looking at the other screen. So you have half of Tufts. You have half of each of those three. I think I could probably do the other half of Monster Mash.
Okay.
So that'd be the early shift, right? To be 2 to 3:30.
Uh,
Or no,
Hold on.
when did we say that was 2 to 6?
I'm going to stop sharing because I lost the screen that had that. Here we go. So the other would be, so it would be 2 to 6. So you'd be signing up for, say, the first half of that,
2 to 4.
2 to 4.
And Roberta, if you could note me as the second shift on the farmer's market, that would be better for me.
Okay. You guys are great.
Depending on the day, I might be able to make the first shift.
Okay. And we can always do it on different days. So if you're willing to join me for half of a date, we can just tell them that we'll be there for half of a date.
Mhm.
All right. Very good. I think that takes us to the end of our agenda. We've done it. Anything else, Roberta, you want to add for the benefit of the group?
No, I think that covers everything that we needed to talk about today.
Excellent. All right. Anything else from the broader group? Okay.
Nope.
I need to do a vote to adjourn. Roberta, should I?
Yes.
All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And second, please.
Can second that.
Thank you. Roberta, please call the roll.
Eric,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mary Jo,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
Heather,
Yes.
and Ryan.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.
Oh, I'm
Thanks for
sorry.
this.
And Joe,
Yep.
I saw you.
All good.
Joe's gonna stay on.
Joe, yeah. I was gonna say, welcome to hang. All right, gang. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
all. Bye-bye.